All right, we are back. Peanut Gallery, take it away.
Yeah, so CW. Not a lot of people will necessarily equate it with professional wrestling, but it was very famously a part of, it very famously hosted SmackDown when it was UPN and when it was the CW for a long time. I mean, this was back in the Attitude Era.
Well, this was Ruthless. Wait.
Well, not Attitude. Ruthless Aggression Era. It started. I think they started that contract in 2002, and it went through like 2000 and
was the because
16 or something like that.
SmackDown was introduced in 1998. 1999.
Yeah, and I think that was on. I don't want to say TNN.
I think it was on UPN. I could be wrong about that.
I don't think so. Anyways, but the point being is that this brand has long been associated with professional wrestling. Yeah.
And UPN, I mean, with UPN even before McMahon's and everything, I think they ran NWA stuff on that program.
I didn't see any evidence of that happening, but again, they've been long associated with professional wrestling. So, of course, them wanting to get back into the professional wrestling game is nothing new.
When was SmackDown taken off of CW? Do you remember?
I think it was when they moved over to USA.
Oh, okay.
Back in 2013 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
This was way back. Also, famously, UPN was the primary host of the original XFL.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the majority of their programming was on UPN's network.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the CW, or the company that owns the CW, primarily the 75% shareholder, they are doing a really big push on getting sports on the CW again, and also
and that is why this transition over to more sports-oriented programming is so integral.
Yeah, they did they had a Christian phase for a while.
They did. There was a phase for a long time where they didn't have any sports programming, but especially with the streaming service out now, they want to get back into sports, which is why we saw NXT for the first time moving to a broadcast television network. Mm-hmm. They are no longer just a cable, because USA is a cable network. Right. So you have to pay for a subscription for it. With CW, it's over the air. So you don't have to necessarily pay for a cable subscription to get that channel.
You don't have to. No, you don't have to at all.
Right.
I mean, because I think it's like channel 2 or 3.
Yeah, something like that.
If you have a TV, you can essentially get this.
Yeah,
channel,
if you have rabbit ears, you can get that channel over the air.
Which is why this is crazy. Because I don't think a lot of people realize how many people still don't have access.
or they choose not to have cable.
Right.
Because, with the cord cutting and everything, this is also a major win for a streaming platform to also carry NXT. I don't know what streaming platform CW is necessarily a part of, but I do know
I think they're making their own.
I do know that the streaming process is a part of this deal with NXT.
Now, and I want to add here, because originally it was going to be Power.
Yes, and so we're going to talk about why NXT kind of got in over Power.
Now,
so
what I'm hearing, though, they are still interested with NWA and Power, and also that other show, but they want to make it this new app exclusive.
Right. So let's talk about why, because I don't think we necessarily talked about why Power has kind of soured on the CW's part.
It was the cocaine incident.
Right, it was. And I think it's important to understand that, yes, they still have some standards, and the reason that they probably chose NXT for the cable portion was because not only would it bring in bigger numbers than NWA Power would, but they know the kind of brand that they're getting into.
Oh, and we still have no idea if Power is going to be on the CW or not, because I don't think Billy Corgan outright said the CW. He just said it was a big TV syndication. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that he said. I think a lot of people just assumed, and also some of the sports writers were saying that it was the CW because the CW has been pushing sports. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the other thing that was taken out, and that was the CW executive approaching Tony Khan.
Yep, and this was actually last year when Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor from Sinclair
And
Broadcasting.
the only reason that Tony Khan said no at the time was because he did not have the TV rights to it yet.
Right.
Because it was very, very early in the purchase of Ring of Honor
Yep.
that happened.
And the reason that the CW approached Tony Khan was because a lot of CW affiliates are run by Sinclair Broadcasting.
Yep.
And so that was a discussion that was had at the very beginning, but of course that never happened, and now they have no TV deal at all.
Right, and here is the other thing that I think we really need to talk about, because we're talking about the powers that be at the CW making this choice. They are publicly owned. They are owned by, we did talk about this with Warner Media, I think they own like 15 or 20% of the CW network.
Yep.
Now, this could be stretching here, but this could possibly be a test to see if WWE can be run within the Warner Brothers Discovery thing, because AEW still has not signed a TV deal with them, and they're running up here. When was this TV deal?
Sometime in 2024 is when the TV deal expires.
Okay.
And you know, the other thing that you also have to consider as well is this is not the WWE of 6 months ago, because now WWE is part of a much larger company.
And
they are
numbers week after week.
Right, and they are pursuing TV deals now under the TKO name and not under the WWE name.
Right.
So their strategy with coming up with new TV deals is a lot different.
Yep, exactly.
And negotiating these TV deals is a lot different. So it was very interesting for me to see all of a sudden NXT being picked up by the CW, but looking more into it, it makes a lot of sense from at least a testing perspective, because they're not picking up Raw or SmackDown.
They're picking up NXT.
They're picking up a lesser brand in NXT, but NXT still gets a really sweet deal out of it because they get into more households than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much if you have a television with any sort of anything that connects to shows, you have the CW.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Billy Corgan and the NWA really wanted this, because goddamn, that's a lot of people who may not have that cable but still are nostalgic about some wrestling.
Right.
So, it really just depends on
it remains to be seen what the future of NWA on the CW
does NBC
networks.
Universal have ownership within CW network?
No, they do not.
Now that's another thing too. This is another WWE property that's outside of the NBC Universal shadow, if that is true.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that, but I do not believe that, and I think NBC did at some point, but I don't believe that they have...
Continue to filibuster, I'm looking it up really quick.
I don't believe that they have any ownership stake in it. Now, this is also interesting because we don't know the fate of Raw as of right now.
So it's a CBS Entertainment Group, which is Paramount Global. They have 12.5%, and then Warner Brothers Entertainment and Warner Brothers Discovery own 12.5%, and then Nexstar Media Group owns 75%. That's how it's distributed. So this is going to be a channel that is outside of the NBC Universal.
Yep, it is. And I do not know if they have more money at stake or what the case is with these media deals. But again, with SmackDown moving to USA, with NXT moving to the CW, what's the fate of Raw? We don't necessarily know that now.
I think it will most likely stay on USA just because that's been the mainstay. I mean, unless it's going to like TBS or something, which would be monumentally insane.
Well, again, that's a different company, but I do think that Warner Brothers Discovery, at the end of the day, is interested in wrestling, but we just don't know. I don't think they even know what type of wrestling they want to showcase.
And they have been happy with the results from AEW, and that's something that we do have to say is that they are happy about it. But apparently it's Tony Khan's perception on a library of AEW stuff that he's way overvaluing.
Yep.
And I think that's, they're trying to think of their assets here. They're paying a lot of money for this.
And I think a big driver to that is the deals that that Warner Brother Discovery wants to maintain with the NBA, because the NBA brings in way more money.
Yep. Way
But
more eyeballs, and
right.
it's like you have to cater to that, and
I mean, that has to be priority number one.
those playoffs are on Wednesday.
I mean, that's priority number one if you want to have a successful television network, is to bring the big money into the people that will bring the most eyeballs, that will then incur more ad revenue.
That's why there's a lot of people that want WWE, because number one, they're part of TKO, which is part of UFC, but also they're looking at that numbers wise. They're doing better numbers than they did 10 years ago.
Right.
So.
But that's my 2 cents on the whole situation. Is there anything that you really wanted to add?
There's a lot of complexities. Maybe if we don't have a pay-per-view, we can really dive deep.
Yeah, dive a little bit deeper into like what television deals are and how they work in the sports and media landscape.
Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting topic. Keep that in mind.
But anyways, when we come back, Crown Jewel. I know it was last week, but we didn't do a show last week.
Yep, so stay tuned for that.